Shams The Athletic has reported that the Memphis Grizzlies will not be bringing back Dillon Brooks next season under any circumstances, and the odds were immediately revealed, showing that the Raptors are now favorites to land the infamous wing in free agency this summer. So we'll break that down, including some potential packages we could make with the Memphis Grizzlies as they're looking to significantly improve their roster going into next year. Also, we have an update on Team Canada as we have a really nice looking roster heading into FIBA action, and we have some pool updates in terms of who we'll be playing against. So lots of stuff to break down there and a whole bunch more. But let's dive into our first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is the Raptors being favorites to land Dillon Brooks this summer. And this is wild. This is pretty crazy as there was some talks, there was some chatter that the Raptors almost landed Dillon Brooks at this year's trade deadline, so there was some interest on that front from Masai Ujiri, although I think he was more interested in the draft capital that would have been coming back to Toronto, as it seemed like we're going to send OG Anunoby to Memphis. But there was a situation where we almost landed Dillon Brooks at this year's trade deadline, and it seems like it could possibly happen this summer, as the betting odds, the odds-on favorites, the insiders, they are coming out and revealing the odds that the Toronto Raptors are favorites. Now, we're not a favorite by a significant margin. The Houston Rockets are pretty well neck and neck with us at this point, followed by the Detroit Pistons, Indiana Pacers, Utah Jazz, Sacramento Kings, LA Lakers. But as we know, right, the betting odds people, they usually have some inside scoops, knowing what's happening behind the scenes in terms of where players will play. They're always trying to make their money, and they name the Toronto Raptors as the favorites to land Dillon Brooks. Now, this is interesting. As I said in the intro, Dillon Brooks will not be going back to the Memphis Grizzlies. They really just threw him under the bus, coming out with a tweet from Shams, fed him that information, kind of scapegoating the guy for their first-round flame out to the LA Lakers, saying, he's not coming back. Now, apparently Brooks also was a bit disgruntled about his role, saying that he's more of a three-point shooter and defender, right? He can do more out there on the basketball court, and he wasn't happy with the situation. They couldn't agree on a contract extension. So the Grizzlies just said, hey, no chance you're coming back to this team, and now Brooks is going to have to play elsewhere for next season. Now, you see the odds. The Raptors are the favorites there with the Houston Rockets. You look at NBA Twitter, you look at NBA Reddit, you probably expect the favorites should have been the Shanghai Sharks, even though I don't even think they're going to have a season next year after they threw away a game over there in the Chinese Basketball Association. But I digress. Dillon Brooks is not that horrible of a player. Am I, chomping at the bit to bring this guy in this summer? Do I want to give him a big contract or something like that? No, but if we do acquire him, I don't think it's the end of the world. You look at his you look at his stats for this season, right? He's not that horrible, right? 14 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Where the real issues lie with Dillon Brooks is he likes to take a lot of shots. He's not that great at shooting them, right? He's not that efficient. 33% from the three-point line, under 40% from the field, but he is a solid on-ball defender. He's a pest, even though he talked a lot of smack. He lathered himself in honey, poked a bear, and then got attacked by LeBron James. But, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Dillon Brooks, I don't want to come out here and bash completely. And if we were to get him for like a vet minimum, for something extremely cheap, if no one wants to touch him across the NBA and bring him in, I'm cool with it. That's what I'm saying at this. I know people have already typed up comments saying, Ben's defending this guy. He's Canadian, all that sort of stuff. Homer and stuff. But Dillon Brooks is not that horrible. But if we're going to have to pay him a significant margin, if we're going to have to give away assets, right? If there's a question about keeping Gary Trent Jr. or signing Dillon Brooks and another guy, I don't want Dillon Brooks to be a main point, a staple in terms of what we do this offseason. Sure, it'd be cool to bolster our defense, be a guy we could bring up off the bench. Sure, there might be question marks about how much minutes he wants, how much opportunity he's looking to get, all that sort of stuff, but he'd be a cool guy off the bench. But if we have to give him $10, $15+ million per year, if he's looking for a massive contract, if he's looking for a big situation where he's taken a step back this most recent season, he was kind of on an upswing, and this year's points per game went down, obviously had the horrific flame out in the playoffs. I'm not interested whatsoever on that front, and I feel like that's the pro Dillon Brooks sort of stance you can take right now. I mean, Doug Smith almost shot whoever came out here and making up talking these ideas about Dillon Brooks coming out saying, so the Raptors who desperately need shooting are being linked to one of the most least efficient shooters in the game, who plays much of the same position as OG Anunoby as well as Scotty Barnes, although not even remotely as well. It's not even summer, and I wish the NBA summer was over. And I feel like, while a lot of people have soured on Doug Smith's takes, I feel like that's what a lot of Raptors fans are feeling right now. But I don't know. I wouldn't be super angry if we brought him in here and all that, but at a significant contract, probably the money he's going to get out there on the open market, regardless of what people are saying about him right now. I think it wouldn't be that smart of a move. But let me know if you guys think the Toronto Raptors should go after Dillon Brooks. But something I'm a little bit more intrigued in is the other assets on the Memphis Grizzlies, as news has basically come out that the Memphis Grizzlies, they were embarrassed by this first-round exit. That's pretty clear. Any team would be. They were the second seed, right? John Morant's out there saying that no one in the West, he's not afraid of anyone in the West or anything like that. But they got knocked out by the Los Angeles Lakers, and the game that they got knocked out in was a 40-point blowout. Just an embarrassing loss. Horrible look, for a team that's trying to be on the rise. And news has basically come out from Shams as well, saying that the Grizzlies executive vice president of basketball operations, Zach Kleiman, told reporters on Sunday that the franchise will be very aggressive this offseason. Memphis has up to 5 first-round picks and up to 3 draft swaps to utilize in prospective trades. Now, we heard of this trade deadline. We already brought it up in this video, but the Raptors almost traded for Dillon Brooks as well as draft capital. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of trading away OG Anunoby, but there's a lot of draft assets. The Raptors might be able to sign, or how many picks would we be saying no to for an OG Anunoby package, right? Sure, they're later first-round picks, so they're not that encouraging, but if you get a multitude of picks there for a guy like OG Anunoby, right, some young prospects, maybe a Zaire Williams, I would absolutely adore a Tyus Jones on this team, but I guess that they're trying to improve, given the contract that he's on, they'd want to keep him around, right? If we could get a Tyus Jones, maybe a few of their young players, Brandon Clark's a guy I've always liked, but obviously he tore his Achilles, who knows when he'll end up being back, but there are also pieces on the Memphis Grizzlies, including that draft capital. I sort of threw out this little segment, this sort of topic, to ask you guys, how many draft picks would you want to see in return? Some late round draft picks, which I'd assume they'd be, given the Memphis Grizzlies' current stature in the NBA. How many draft picks would you need to come back to the Toronto Raptors if we were to trade away OG Anunoby? It would have to be a lot from me, but I want to hear it from you guys, because the Grizzlies are a likely trading partner for this team, even if the Blazers and the Pelicans seem to have more attractive assets for the Toronto Raptors. But I want to see what you guys think about this whole situation. But the next thing we're taking a look at is Team Canada looking stacked for this summer. Now, Team Canada, it's always been rough. We've had a lot of NBA players for the past decade now in the NBA, but it's always tough to sort of get them all playing at once. But now the pool of guys that we can sort of select from going in the summer, in this summer's FIBA action, it's looking pretty hot, right? We got Shea, who's an all-NBA player, playing like a top 5 player in the NBA this season, even if he's probably not in that tier just yet, but Jamal Murray, RJ Barrett, Lou Dort, Andrew Wiggins, Kelly Olynyk, right? So lots of wing talent there, as our bigs, Kelly Olynyk, Dwight Powell, right? It's Trey Lyles, who, for people that haven't been watching, Trey Lyles has been great for the Sacramento Kings this season, knocking down some threes, an asset to that squad on their 3rd seed in the Western Conference run this season. But Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Andrew Nembhard, Shaedon Sharpe, Benedict Mathurin, right? Lots of guys. No Chris Boucher, who is a player that I think would be a major asset to Team Canada. People were questioning about whether or not he'd play, and he couldn't commit to the 3-year commitment that Nick Nurse was asking for. Nick Nurse is also going to be the head coach of Team Canada. That's something he's committed through the Olympics. So, people are questions about that. He'll be back there as well. Boucher might be asked to be on the roster if he's asked as well. He said he'd play if he's asked, but obviously couldn't commit for last season, so it's tough to bring him in, halfway through the journey. But Team Canada's roster is looking pretty stacked, and Josh Lewenberg revealed what the group is looking like for this summer, and basically saying the World Cup group includes France, who are ranked 5th, Latvia 29th, and Lebanon, who are 43rd. Right, the top 2 teams advance and face the top 2 teams of Spain, Brazil, Iran, and Cote d'Ivoire. And 2 spots in the quarterfinals. Canada will need to finish top 2 amongst teams in the Americas to qualify for the 2024 Olympics. After an early August training camp in Toronto, Canada will play 5 exhibition games across Europe to open the World Cup in Indonesia on August 25th. Up to a 6-week commitment for the 12 players who make the team. Nick Nurse remains the head coach through 2024 Olympic cycle. So France will be a tough matchup in our group for sure, but it's definitely doable. I mean, you look at this roster there for Team Canada. We have a squad on us right now, and I think we should still beat France. I know Joel Embiid is trying to change his citizenship or ensure that he can play on Team France. He's stuck in the Cameroon despite the fact he's winning MVP, and we'll talk about our next segment and stuff. But, he might be on France, and that might be a very tough front court to deal with in Joel Embiid, Rudy Gobert, and Victor Wembanyama. But they also got some guys. France could be tough, but the rest of the teams, the rest of the squads we could face up against, I'm pretty confident in the Toronto Raptors and Team Canada being able to get some wins and potentially win. Assume we're not playing the U.S. just yet. But we got a lot of NBAers and a lot of guys that have built up some chemistry over the years. It's going to be cool to see how this Team Canada roster comes together. Big issue that we've had in recent years is our bigs. So I wouldn't mind a Boucher coming in there or Kelly Olynyk playing big, getting some more guys with some more size. But let me know what you guys think about this Team Canada roster and the FIBA action. But speaking of size, and I'll end it off with this one, Koloko giving some props to MVP. Now, Joel Embiid won MVP. Congratulations to him. He doesn't have a lot of love amongst Toronto Raptors fans, given our playoff battles, but probably deserved one of the last three. So glad he got one this season, even though Jokic probably had the better year, was on the better team. But I digress on that point. Joel probably should have won it last year. Jokic should have won it this year. But Embiid got the MVP, and Christian Koloko's out here congratulating Joel, saying, you guys don't know what guys like him, Pascal Mbamute, represent to the young Cameroonian and African hoopers out there. Keep showing us the way, man. And, Joel Embiid, Koloko's repping Cameroon. Joel Embiid's going to France, and this is just a segue I wanted to go into. Joel Embiid, don't play for France if you're facing up against Team Canada this summer. That's my take right there. But, folks, let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You guys are the best. I'm signing out. Cheers.